Hey guys, welcome to another video from Historic Militaria. Today we are going to be looking at a round from World War II which doesn't get talked about very often, and that is the 8x59 Italian. And that is an 8mm round and a 59mm long case, so the 8x59, which is the standard metric designation for it. It was an Italian round that was developed before World War II in the mid-1930s, and it was used exclusively in Italian machine guns, at least as issued. It was used in the Model 1935 Fiat Revelli, and then the Model 1937 and 38 Breda machine guns. It was, unfortunately, like pretty much all Italian machine guns in World War II, they were not the best, to put it mildly. Some of the Italian ones were okay. The Fiat Revelli was okay. The Breda 37 and 38 were okay. But they had some interesting quirks, which we'll get into. But this is the actual round itself, and this particular specimen was made in 1944 in Italy, and it's an interesting round because it's a rimless round, as you can see here, but the base is actually rebated from the rest of the case, which is not typical of the majority of cartridge cases. You will see that certain times, but generally you're just going to have a plain rimless round, not a rebated round. And just for reference, here's the other standard Italian rounds from World War II. That is your 7.35 by 51, which was a standard Italian rifle and machine gun round. And as you can see, that's just a standard rimless round. And then you've got your 6.5 Carcano, which was also a rimless round, and that's a 6.5 by 52. So pretty standard for the time rifle rounds. And then the Italians decided, hey, let's go for this rebated base, which again was kind of the odd duck out in World War II, and still is. Most cartridges are not. But here's an original box of 50 rounds of that, and obviously it's marked number 50. And then you've got your, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce it, but it just means ball cartridges for Model 35 for the machine gun. So this would actually be marked for the Fiat Revelli M35 machine gun. And then you've got at the bottom, you've got filled with nitrocellulose powder. And I am frankly not exactly sure about the rest of the markings. I believe they are manufacturer's marks. I know these were made in Milan, and beyond that, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in Italian, but as you can see, this is a full box of 50 rounds. We do have the 2 rounds that are out. That's why you see a couple missing, but not a round that you see that often, and it did get used after World War II by Italy, kept using them, and then Spain and also Portugal adopted the machine guns as well. But Spain and Portugal both used them in 8mm Mauser rather than in this sort of odd duck caliber of 8x59. And one interesting aspect of Italian machine guns was their feed systems. And this is actually a feed strip for the Breda Model 37, and it is filled with 8mm Mauser, which was the standard, like I said, for Spain and Portugal. But the strange thing about these was, as the gun actually pulled the round out and then fired it, it would then put your spent shell back in the feed strip and then eject an empty feed strip full of spent brass. So there's been a few theories as to why it took the extra complication to do that. I've heard both that it was to save spent brass so that soldiers could easily clean up their spent brass and then turn it in for reloading, because budget-minded armies at the time really wanted to, save as much money as they could, and brass was a big expense. And if you could reload it, it was a good thing. But I don't know that holds a lot of water, because obviously all the other Italian machine guns of the time, such as your Breda Model 30, which was a stripper clip fed gun, that would just take the shells, you dump your stripper clip, and then it would just eject the shells like any other machine gun. So why this one put the spent brass back into the feed strip? The most compelling theory, and the theory that I tend to buy into, is that it was with a design of use in tanks and vehicles where you didn't want an errant spent brass to be getting jammed up in a turret control or anything like that. So if you could eliminate brass flopping all over your driver's area or gunner's area, it was just a way to keep things a little bit safer. Whether or not the case, it was definitely a quirk, and I certainly don't believe, at least I can't off the top of my head think of any other gun that went through that kind of trouble to do that. And it's just one of those strange Italian quirks of World War II Italian guns. They all had some pretty interesting design issues, but despite that, the Breda Model 37 and 38 certainly saw service up through the 1960s, generally chambered in 8mm Mauser, and especially with Spain and Portugal, the Italians kept using it at least through the 1950s, and I believe that even some of these had gotten chambered in 30-06 as sort of armies westernized and started adopting American calibers. But just wanted to take a look at a sort of unusual round from World War II and maybe give you a little bit of highlights on it, and just kind of, if you ever run across it, you have a little bit of history on it. One last thing, you will see these in both brass and steel cased. Steel cased will generally be World War II vintage, brass cased pre-war. The other thing I will say is that the head stamps are going to be in typical Italian style. So if you know anything about head stamps, you're going to look at that and go, oh, that's an Italian head stamp. And these are dated 1944. As always, remember to like and subscribe, and we'll be looking at some more interesting rounds coming up. As always, thanks a lot for watching, and hope to see you soon.